Hey everybody, welcome back to Furniture Flipping Teacher. In this video, I am going to be making over these nightstands. Stay tuned for the final result. I got these nightstands for just $35 each at a Goodwill when we took a thrifting trip a couple hours away from us in Des Moines, Iowa. And I was going to leave them because of the style. It's just not my particular style. But because of the price and the rarity of getting a pair of nightstands, I decided to go ahead and pull the trigger and bring these babies home to see what we can do with them. This is going to be a great video if you are a beginner furniture flipper, because I always suggest starting out with a smaller project. So something like a pair of nightstands or even a single nightstand or end table is a perfect beginner project because of the scale of it. You don't have to tackle a 9-drawer dresser on your first project. First thing that we are going to do with these nightstands is remove the hardware. Next, it's time to clean. And I've got my simple green here. If you are a beginner flipper, this may be a new concept to you, but if you've been here for a while, you know cleaning is one of the most important parts of flipping furniture. I really like to start with a clean slate, but the main reason that I like to clean is because I want to get all of the dirt and grime off of the pieces so that like our paint and primer will adhere really well. And the reason that I do it, my second step, is because I don't want to grind any of the dust and grease into the surface when I go to sand or scuff sand, so that the primer will adhere even better. So simple green is a great option. You can use cleaners specifically for furniture, which, like from Lily Moon Paint, they have a furniture prep cleaner that I love. That's a no rinse cleaner. And then, you know, Dixie Belle has their own cleaner. Most of the paint companies have their own cleaner, but Simple Green, Crud Cutter, Dawn dish soap, so many different options. I'm gonna go ahead and spray this down. These have been in the shop for quite some time now, so they are quite dirty. They've collected a lot of dust and they're ready for some love. Oh, those are yummy. Ew. So on the top of these nightstands, there's like this divots inside, or like there's multiple wood pieces put together and there's divots and there's a lot of dust in there. So I'm gonna try and use my drill attachment here with the bristle brush and see if that can kind of get some of that dust loose. I'm just gonna spray my simple green right in there and hopefully loosen up some of that dust. One of my favorite game apps, June's Journey, is hosting an in-game harvest festival where they are promoting sustainability. June's Journey is a hidden object mystery game with a captivating detective story taking you back to the glamour of the 1920s with a diverse cast of characters. Each new scene takes you through a thrilling murder mystery story that sets the main protagonist, June Parker, in a quest to solve the murder of her sister and uncover the family's many secrets. The Harvest Festival is a special event within the game. From September 9th to September 15th, players should play a number of hidden object scenes to complete the celebration milestones and win in-game prizes. The players who complete every milestone will get a special decoration for their islands. Also, from September 9th through the 16th, send in photos of you recycling, doing DIY projects, or supporting local farmers to earn extra rewards in the game. Check out the QR code on screen or check out the link down below and download the game today. This is one of my favorite games to play. I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do. Let's get back to the furniture flip. Next up, it's time to sand. So, like I said, this is going to be a beginner-friendly flip. So there are several different options that you can choose when looking at sanding. So there's something called scuff sanding, and there's something called like sanding back the finish, to where you're literally trying to get rid of the look and the color of the finish. So in this case, we're going to be doing a little bit of both. So first, on the top, I want to see what's under here. I'm not 100% sure if this is solid wood or if it is a veneer, or if it's even like particle board or MDF. And so what I want to do is start to kind of sand this back. It looks to me like it's solid wood, but then there's some other areas where it's like, that just might be a fake finish. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a 120 grit on my Surf Prep sander. And obviously, if you're a beginner, you probably don't have a Surf Prep sander yet, or you have maybe just a orbital sander, like something like this. Maybe it plugs in, maybe it has a battery, and that is totally okay. It works the same. The Surf Prep is just a little bit more powerful. It's more of a professional grade sander, but the job can also still be done with a orbital rotating sander, something along the lines of this. But I don't want to scare you away just because I'm using a Surf Prep, which is a little bit more expensive for sure, but definitely worth the investment. This is probably one of my best investments in my business that I did. Now it's been, shoot, at least 2, maybe 3 years ago. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my 120 grit, and we're gonna go to town starting to sand on this top here and try to get rid of all of this dark brown to see what we're working with underneath. Okay, so after sanding just one little section of the nightstand, I have found out that it's solid wood on top, and we're working with pine, which is a decent wood. It's a softer wood, and it does stain a little bit funky here and there, so we'll want to make sure to keep that in mind when we go to stain the top. But as for sanding the rest of this down, we are good to go because we've got wood underneath. And so I'm going to go ahead and finish sanding the rest of these 2 tops, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, scuff sanding is all done, but I did kind of forget that I wanted to fill the hardware holes. So I've got these 2 drawers that are, I think they're maybe about like 2 inches for hardware holes. So I'm just gonna go ahead and fill these in so that I can make new hardware holes for the new hardware, I'm gonna do that with some Bondo. Okay, we've got my wood filler, or kind of like my replacement for Bondo. It's JB Weld Wood Restore Repair Putty, and it works super simply. I just take a small piece of cardboard and then put a little bit on to there. It kind of depends on how much you are filling. Here we've only got 4 holes that we're filling, so we're not gonna need a ton of product. And plus this stuff does dry and harden up pretty quickly, so you don't wanna use too much at a time. But then we'll put the cream hardener with the first part and then mix it all together, making sure it's one nice consistent color. I just use one of these like wooden stir sticks. That way they're just disposable and I can throw them away. They're pretty cheap for packs at the store. And then once it's all one consistent color, you just fill in your hardware holes with it. Kind of overfill just a tad bit so that when you're sanding, you're able to sand it nice and even and smooth over the top. You can also use it to fill in different areas like this, or if there's larger gouges. But for this specific project, I don't mind if that's popping through because it's also on the top. And so I'm just gonna keep that on the fronts of these drawers as well. It'll get covered up by the paint, but you still will be able to see it. I think it'll add just a little bit of detail. I've covered it up in past projects, and this one I'm just deciding not to. Totally up to you. So once that hardens, we'll come back and sand that. Otherwise, we're gonna be prepping for primer. So I'm gonna protect the tops of these nightstands while I prime and paint them, and then we'll take it off and stain the tops afterward. Some people like to do the stain first. Totally up to you. Either way, you have to protect the tops. So I just like to use this pre-taped plastic. It comes in like 24-inch and 48-inch. I just happen to have the 48-inch on hand right now, so that's what I'm gonna use. But I just rip off enough and then put it underneath, grab on, and then we'll pull it out. Time to prime. These, when you do smaller projects that don't have a lot of prep work, it goes a lot quicker. So this, I mean, we're only a few hours into this project and we're already ready to prime. So I've got the Lily Moon Paint Eclipse Stain Blocking Primer in the color gray. And I'm gonna strain it through into my paint sprayer. Now I did say that this was a beginner friendly flip and I am still standing by that. It's okay if you're a beginner and you're just learning how to spray in a spray gun, because it's gonna save you a lot of time and it's gonna give you a really great finish. But the number one thing that you need to remember is to use a strainer to get all of the chunks out of your primer or your paint before you put it inside of your spray gun. I'm gonna be using the Wagner Flexio 5000, and I'll show you a little bit more about the controls of it here in just a minute. Since there's just 2 small pieces, I'm only gonna put in, you know, maybe about halfway up, and we'll probably end up doing 2 coats of this primer just because that's what it recommends. so that it's truly going to be that stain blocking. Now that my paint is strained through, I'm going to just put that nozzle right on there. If you have the Wagner Flexio model, really any of the models, just know that it comes with two different nozzles. And this is the fine detail nozzle, and then the other one is a little bit bigger. It's called the eye spray nozzle. That's more for like walls or larger projects like fences or decks. This is perfect for furniture because you want it to be a super fine mist that's going on your project so that it can really self-level as it's supposed to as it comes out of the paint sprayer. I'm gonna go ahead and get this all hooked up and get my mask on and show you some controls. So here's my Wagner Flexio 5000. The machine sits down on the ground, and then the hose is what connects to the actual sprayer. So it's super nice when cleaning because this comes apart and everything here can get wet. I do have some sprayers like my HomeRite where it's all connected, so you just have to be a little bit more careful when cleaning. Still doable, but this one is much easier. And you can also get new nozzles anytime you want. So I have like a ton of these nozzles and it really works out. So once I get it all connected, I've got this plugged in, and then I need to put this on my nozzle. You just lock it into place like so. And then there's two areas where you're going to adjust for any controls. The first one is down here under the trigger, and the second one is up here on the top here. So this one controls your material flow. There's a plus button and a minus button that kind of shows you, okay, this is more material coming out, this is less material coming out. And then the top up here is your air power or your airflow, how much air is letting through the spray gun. Typically, I'll keep mine around a 5, and that is going to give me the perfect amount. But every single time you use a new product, a new primer, a new paint, whatever it may be, make sure you test your spray pattern. That is why I have this cardboard piece here. I go into so much more depth about 3 different types of paint sprayers, electric paint sprayers such as the Wagner Flexio 5000 and the HomeRite sprayer in our paint spraying course. So be sure and check that down below. Check out that down below. There's some links that'll lead you right to our courses. If you're interested in bettering yourself and really learning how to get into the nitty-gritty of using a paint sprayer, because I'm telling you, it's going to up your level of game when it comes to furniture flipping and the finishes that you get and just the look and the overall quality of your pieces. So like I said, I'm going to use this cardboard piece here to test my spray pattern with the primer. You'll always want to wear a mask so that you don't breathe in the paint fumes. And then I've also got my Wagner spray tent here. This really helps with the overspray. I like to line it with a drop cloth down on the bottom, and then it just kind of helps not get paint everywhere in the workshop. We're ready for coat 2 of primer. This dried very quickly, and also it dried super, super smooth. This is probably like one of the primers that I would say dries the smoothest. It has self-leveling properties, and I don't even need to sand it down. Sometimes I like to do like a 400 grit sanding between coats of primer. But because it's so smooth and it dried so quickly and we're inside, there's really not a lot of debris or dust that landed on it. So we're just gonna go straight into coat number 2. Time to paint. The primer's dry. We got 2 coats of it on there and it's looking good. We've got no bleed through coming out. And I am going to be using Lily Moon paint and the Opulent line, which means that they are all in one. So that means that technically the primer's built in, but really it's more of a bonding primer that's built into it. So it's gonna stick really well. And then we've got the paint built in, and then we've also got the top coat built in. If you're a beginner, I recommend all-in-one paints all the way, because then you don't have to worry about a top coat. And sometimes top coats can be a little bit tricky. If you are doing the top coat, I recommend spraying it every time because it's just the best flawless finish. I am mixing some colors today, just trying to use up my paint stash. So we're mixing Starless Nights and Stargazer, which are two very similar blues, but I wanted to mix them up because I wanted to use them up, and I only had like maybe like a half-ish of each. So I poured them all into here, and we mixed up this beautiful navy color. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in my strainer so that I can filter out all of the chunks that could be in there. I'm hoping that this is going to be enough paint for the 2 nightstands for both coats, because this is all I have of that color. And if not enough, then I don't know what we're gonna do. I'm just gonna add a tad bit of water as well, maybe like an ounce there, just to thin out my paint a tad bit, because I want it to flow nicely through my spray gun. And with experience, I've kind of learned that this paint particularly needs just a little bit of watering down, nothing too crazy. All right, coat 2 is going on. Since the paint is all done, there's no top coat to go on. I am gonna go ahead and take off the plastic so that while the paint's drying, we can move on to the tops, and we are gonna stain the tops. So I wanna get this off of here. Since we've already sanded these down, they're ready to stain. I'm thinking of going with a darker stain on the top. I grabbed my Lily Moon Paint Old Smoky Gel Stain in the color Mudslide. It is a pretty dark brown, and I think it'll match nicely with the navy color. And then I'm thinking of doing some black hardware. So I think kind of just going with a little bit of more moody, darker color scheme on these nightstands. I am gonna put some gloves on and apply the stain with a blue sponge here and my mister bottle. So what I like to do is just pour a little bit into a separate container. That way it's just easy to dip my sponge in. This is a water-based gel stain, and it does have top coat built into it, but because this is the top of a nightstand, I know that it's gonna get a lot of traffic, and there's gonna be, you know, like drinks, water, things like that. So I wanna protect it more. I'll do a few coats of a true top coat on the top here. What I like to do is just mist my sponge a little bit here, and then lightly mist my surface as well. And then we're going to go in the direction of the wood grain with the sponge and applying the gel stain. So there's a couple of different directions. We've got sideways here, and then across here. So kind of got to pay attention to these lines just to make sure that we aren't getting any streaky lines in our finish. I'm going to start going side to side. As I said, I'm gonna do an extra couple layers of protection on the tops of these nightstands. They're pretty matte right now, and I would just be a little afraid of like watermarks and stuff like that. So I'm gonna be using a waterproof top coat. It's from Dixie Belle. It is gator hide and it repels water. So that means even if I were to like set a drink on there, it should not make any water rings. It should just repel the water straight through. So I'm using my also Zibra brush. It is for top coats specifically. That's the kind of like more brownish bristles that you see. I'll link them down below. Also, a code will get you some money off anytime you order from Zibra. I love their brushes. Whenever I use a brush, it's 9 times out of 10 going to be a Zibra brush. So just really big, it glides the paint along, and then these specific brushes are meant to help lessen streaking in top coats, so that's why it's a top coat brush. Again, I'm going with the grain of the wood, just like I did when I was applying the stain. And I'm going all the way from side to side so that we don't get any of those start-stop marks. Now the gator hide is not a matte or a satin. It does have a little bit more of a glossy finish. And so with that being said, if you aren't into the glossy finish, then you could always do a coat of like a matte or a satin over the top to get a different finish, but still getting that utmost protection of the gator hide. It is time to drill new hardware holes, and we just need a couple things for this. I really love using the hardware jig. There's this type, or there's other types too. I'll link this one down below. This makes it a lot easier for me to make sure that I've got it right where I want it. So then what I'm gonna do is I take my handle like here, and then I measure it, which this one was 3 inches. So I made the holes 3 inches apart. And then all I've got to do is place this right in the middle of my drawer, drill the holes, and put my hardware on. This is going to help you get it the most level and the most equal. And if you have multiple drawers, like in this case, I have 2 drawers, so I'm going to be able to get it in the same exact spot for both drawers really simply. Drawers 5 inches, so I'll want it right in the middle at 2.5. Okay, and then sometimes the screws for the hardware are too short when they're like this, but too long when they're like this, so you can clip them to make sure that they are the exact length that you want them to be. So in this case, I need to cut some of them off so that the hardware fits on there. All right, I'm using 2 brushes, 2 different Zibra brushes. This one is the small artist brush, and this one is the large artist brush, and it's square. These are perfect for touch-ups because on the doors and a little bit inside where the drawer fits, since everything was closed up, there wasn't any space for the paint to get on the edges of the doors. So instead of taking them off and taping everything out, I decided to go ahead and just keep them closed and do touch-ups later. You can choose if you want to do touch-ups or like paint this area before or after you spray. It really doesn't matter. It kind of just depends on your workflow and how you like to work. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm just using the same paint that I have inside of my spray gun as well, and just so that I know that I have the same color, since this is the only amount that I have left for this color. specifically. All right, our beginner furniture flip is complete. I am absolutely in love with the way that these turned out. I couldn't have asked for a better result, honestly. It's been a while since I've done like a stained top, and I don't know why I don't do it more often because it really truly does look good, especially the darker color. Sometimes I lean more toward doing like a tan paint wash, and the stain just really helps bring that wood grain out, and it's super pretty. So let me know what you guys think down below in the comments about this color combo. What would you have maybe done differently? I kind of thought about changing out the grids down here, but then I was like, you know, that would just create a lot more work for myself when really these don't need something else, in my opinion. Again, these aren't necessarily my style, but I do think that they will fly off the market pretty quickly. Let's talk about some numbers with these nightstands. So originally I got these nightstands for $35 each, giving us a total of $70 as a buy-in for these, which I was okay with doing because, like I said at the beginning, it can be pretty tricky to come across a matching set of nightstands, especially at this large of a scale. I remember I was watching some other people around and they were also looking at these, so I grabbed them super quick and loaded them up into the car before anyone else could do that. So the rest of the numbers, primer cost about $20. I didn't even use close to a whole can of that. $30 for paint. Remember, I was using up some old paint that I had, so it factored out to be around $30. And then about $5 worth of stain. It really didn't take a ton, and that bottle of stain truly goes a long way. I can use it on multiple projects and still have some left over. And for the sandpaper, the Bondo, the paper, the tape, different miscellaneous things like that, $10 are factored in pretty much to every project for those types of things. Unless I'm using an excess of those products, then I'll definitely factor in more. And then hardware, I had this hardware on hand. I'm really trying my hardest to use up the materials that I have on hand so that I can just not have so much stuff. So these hardware, I used like similar ones or some on a different project, like maybe a year ago. And so I had some left over that I didn't need all of them for that project. Long story short, I had these on hand, but we're factoring in about $20 for these 6 pieces of hardware, giving us a total price or a total cost for these of $155. We're getting these babies sold today. I've had them listed on Facebook Marketplace for about a week or so at $425, and then I decided to go ahead and accept an offer for $400 even. So they're coming to pick them up right now. This is gonna give us a total profit of $245, which really isn't that bad considering it took me only about like 4 hours to finish these. So that gives us a pretty good hourly wage. This is just another reminder that furniture flipping, it doesn't have to be big pieces all of the time. You can do smaller pieces and still get great profit. They're here. All right, it is sold. It's out of here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget, download June's Journey and play the Harvest Festival game here in September. We'll see you next week, and I'll see you on the flip side.